what is the difference between charismatics and narismatics? Because we hear those terms so often and they're put so closely together, but charismatics are not narismatics, even though
Yeah.
narismatics can fit into the charismatic camp. So what is the difference between that?
Okay, so a charismatic is someone who just simply believes in the gifts, grace. Um, and they usually go to Romans 12, and some will go to 1 Corinthians 12. The more hyper charismatic camp around the 1 Corinthians 12 regarding all the apostolic and prophetic gifts. And I need to go back to the New Order of the Latter Rain here, because this is a very dodgy game. Back in the New Order of the Latter Rain, the Pentecostal denomination, Assemblies of God, condemned it and said that they believe that apostles and prophets have been restored today as offices. And it's interesting that when we look at the Pentecostal movement, they did have apostles and prophets, but they weren't calling them offices the way that the NAR does. It was affectionately a term coined for missionaries. So the Pentecostals called out the latter rain. It went underground. And if you read an article by, I think his name was Oral Steinkamp, talking about the New Apostolic Reformation, he made the point that it was the new order of the latter rain that created the man-made charismatic movement. And the reason why is because the latter rain started dumbed down the language of the apostolic offices and prophetic offices, and we're calling them the ascension gifts. And you start seeing this gift language come in through people like Bill Hammond and Bob Jones and a lot of people in the Kansas City Prophets. And that's really important, because that's how they're able to smuggle into the charismatic movement as gifts, not offices. So those who are actually much more of the latter rain backdrop, they are the hyper charismatics who are trying to raise up the apostles and prophets in their offices within the charismatic group. That is why was even moving in prophetic gifting and then to mature into the prophetic office as a prophet in the NAR circles of Australia. So I want to establish the New Order of the Latter Rain gimmick. There's the charismatic. It's all about the gifts. The NAR is all about the offices of apostle and prophet. And I know Holly Pevek talks about that these apostles and prophets govern. That's true. But they also are known as spiritual fathers. And Michael Brown is a spiritual father. Bill Johnson is a spiritual father. We're raising up sons and daughters as the next mothers and fathers in the faith, apostles and prophets. And that language is really important to establish.